Yes! Finally guys, we have arrived to a new Mortal Kombat, and this time it has taken nearly 3 decades to have it made. Now today I'll be giving you a thorough review on the movie, but stay tuned for my afterthoughts, dudes. The story begins with everything seeming peaceful, where a mother is nurturing her baby while her husband goes to get buckets of water. The mother hides and protects the baby along with her son until she hears screams, and then is visited by Bihan, aka Sub-Zero, who is in search of Hanzo Hasashi, who in turn is our hero, Scorpion. He discovers that his wife and son have died and they are frozen. Now we've just begun for a bloodbath. Hanzo immediately seeks revenge and starts slicing up and killing every Lin Kuei in his way. And he's after Sub-Zero because he's obviously devastated and he wants revenge. But instead, Bihan ends up getting him down and stabs his spear right into his shoulder, and he thinks he's got him, and he says for the Lin Kuei. In all essence, he did not get him. So Scorpion wakes up, you see, and he's engulfed in flames and goes down to Netherrealm. Then Raiden shows up, and in all his glory and lightning comes down to grab the baby that was actually hidden from the mother and the son to protect. And this is where we see how Raiden is continuing Scorpion's legacy. He raises up his hands and then disappears, and then that's where we see Mortal Kombat. Now Outworld is about to be on the brink because they feel like this team has won 9 tournaments thus far, and if they win the next tournament, it'll be all damnation for Earthrealm. That's the seriousness of it. The prophecy says that a new band of heroes, warriors, will be there to continue the prophecy, and the legacy is where we are introduced to this new character by the name of Cole Young. By his manager says he's a human punching bag and is giving him $200 every time he fights, whether he wins or loses, but his reputation does not precede him very well at this point. Then Jax, who is a soldier alongside of Sonya Blade, he's on the outs. He's looking for Cole Young because he knows that he's been chosen from his tattoo on his that he's been marked for Mortal Kombat. Now Bihan, we get back to Bihan, and Sub-Zero is who he is. Gets to Shang Tsung, and Shang Tsung is well aware of the situation at hand, and he's basically saying to Sub-Zero that, you know, how can you treat this lightly? He's like, well, I killed Hanzo Hasashi, Scorpion, you know, centuries ago, so there's no threat. Shang Tsung actually says to Sub-Zero that winning should not be led up to chance, because after this final tournament, there'll be no other reason to fight. But then all of a sudden there's snow coming down, and just everything's freezing up, and it's kind of crazy that this would happen at this time of the night. And Jax gets back to his partner Sonya to let her know that he has found Cole. You know, he ends up grabbing Cole, his daughter, to get them to safety, and said it's not a coincidence that you have the dragon tattoo. It means you've been chosen, and so have I, and we are supposed to defend ourselves from Mortal Kombat. So Jax he comes upon Sub-Zero, and he says to Cole and his daughter to, you can go ahead and take this truck. You need to get yourself to safety and go to Indiana and look for Sonya Blade because he sees Sub-Zero and he needs to take him down. Cole believes that him and Jax can both take him on, but Jax warns him, you best run, you better get out of here. So he's giving him a heads up. This guy is not someone to be messed with, and he doesn't know what he's getting himself into. So Jax comes up to Sub-Zero and they fight and battle and square off. You know, Sub-Zero freezes his gun, and then he ends up ripping off his arms. Is just, you know, taking him out, and he's become dizzy and he's fallen to the ground. Cole makes it back to his family and lets them know that they need to just stay in and be safe, and this is something he's got to do. So he's got to go contact. He's got to meet with Sonya Blade, get some answers, and to, you know, defend his family and for himself, because they're hunting people with the mark, and if an enemy shows up, because they could kill him and his family. He wants to prevent this from happening. Melina goes to Shang Tsung and tells him that Sub-Zero has killed one of Earthrealm's warriors, but the other one has escaped. Shang orders that he sent out his assassins, taking him out. all these Earthrealm warriors. Well, he has an opportunity to do that. And she speaks about Lord Raiden. Well, what about breaking the rule with the Elder Gods? And Shang Tsung says, let me handle the Elder Gods. And they didn't win 9 straight tournaments fair to make it this far, so they're going to keep on going and cheating however way they can. So Cole arrives and he briefly faces off with Sonya Blade and lets her know that he's looking for Sonya, and she says, I'm her, and let me show me your dragon tattoo. And then he shows her, and then they begin talking about the marking. She asked him, where's Jax? And he says, well, Jax has been left behind to fight. And Sonya tells him that they are of special forces, that they work together, and they've been on this mission and research on the dragon tattoo and what it all means. And she has all these plans and schematics and things that are projecting, you know, past tense that's irrelevant to the situations that are going on right now at hand. So she feels responsible to share this information with Cole and let him know how serious and dangerous that this mission is, and that they need to go through with being a part of Mortal Kombat. Then we see Kano, a mercenary that's chained up, and apparently he's part of the Black Dragon clan. Murderer for hire, scum of the earth. He's won to fight in Mortal Kombat in the tournament. Kano wasn't chosen to be because he killed this thing with his knife. It came to his skin, and that's how he obtained it and became part of this whole thing. Then we see all three are visited by Reptile, and in the end, after they're fighting against this Reptile, Kano's the only one who manages to step in, put his hand and grab the heart out of the monster. They realize that this is not something to be reckoned with. Kano claims he knows where Raiden's temple is, where they are all to meet to train themselves for Mortal Kombat. And then Sonya just telling him, I'll give you $2 million if you can help us find the place. And then they negotiate, and Kano eventually says $3 million, and of course Sonya doesn't have that. She's not going to give him any of that money. Kano discloses that he knows people that can fly a plane to get them there. So they parachute till they reach land, and then you got Kano running his mouth at Sonya, basically telling her, if you want this dragon tattoo, why don't you just come over here and take it from me? So they get in a little bit of a little quarrel fight, you know, and she ends up taking him down, but she doesn't go all the way through with it. Kano says it's going to take about 35 days for us to reach this place. Cole's like, quit fucking around with beer, give me the GPS, because he's about had it with Kano. He said he needs to take a break, and Cole's like, you just took a break. Kano, in his defense, goes, you know, I killed the lizard man, I got the plane, what more do you want from me? And then on the horizon we see Liu Kang come through, and dudes, he's looking very cool. Brings out his flames. Kano, he's like, what's up, MC Hammer? Because he noticed that Liu's got some baggy pants. You know, with his big mouth, he's just shooting those flames that are coming out. That he's from the Shaolin Order of Light, that he's not the enemy. You know, so Kano asks the questions, well, does that mean that I'm going to get some superpowers too? And Liu says there's much to learn, so follow him. They arrive to a former holy place, you know, where they train. Inside there's paintings of Mortal Kombat's history, and Cole keeps getting he's getting a flashback of seeing Scorpion in these images from the Netherrealm. Who explains the seriousness of this, that there's only a few of them that are able to fight into this tournament, and if they are not able to receive their arcana, they're not going to be able to go through with it to defend themselves, which is why they must train harder than ever before. Sonya comes across Jax and finds out that his arms have been off. Liu says it's been his job to gather everyone, for all the combatants for the Earthrealm, but he found Jax a little too late. And then he brings him to Lord Raiden, whereas Raiden says, this is all that I have to work with. He says to Cole that he's not fit to, even though he bears the mark, he's not fit to compete and fight. Sonya doesn't even have a marking, so she can't do anything. And there's Kano that's asked, well, what about me, Gandalf? The sarcastic remarks, you're powerless, you're arrogant, and you know, he has no use for him. One more victory is all it's going to take for Outwork to win. And if they become victorious, Shang Tsung will control Earth forever, and it will enslave the entire human race. So Cole comes up to Raiden and says, well, they've tried to kill my family, and I will do whatever I need to do. I will fight for my family. And he says, you know, there's only death here. There's nothing for you here. When Cole tells him that he would die for his family, he says, we'll see if you have what it takes. Now, Liu Kang is meditating until the fire from his hand is burnt out. And lo and behold, we see Sub-Zero coming in, attacking Liu Kang. So they get into a little bit of a fight there until he becomes frozen and numb, whereas we see his Shaolin bro, Kung Lao, come up from out of the ground, throws his hat right at him. He helps Liu up, and then they kind of are like side by side, you know, in that moment where they're ready to stand and fight for what they believe in. So the two Shaolin monks, they stand side by side. So Shang Tsung has arrived with Mileena and Sub-Zero, believing it's time to end all of this for this tournament that was never gonna happen because they were gonna cheat their through it anyway. They didn't want a tournament, they just wanted to kill all the warriors, all the chosen warriors, letting the warriors know to take whatever trophy they can get their hands on. Shang exclaims that all the souls are mine. Raiden comes down in this moment and says, silence. Yeah, Shang says he's there to claim the world. Raiden says it is forbidden for you to claim victory without a tournament. Shang says outside of Mortal Kombat is forbidden, but the Elder Gods, they're all too lazy to even try and stop him. And Raiden says, you are in my territory right now and you will leave this place. Shang says, these are your champions? Like, really? Pathetic. Lightning is around Raiden and his team, so Shang decides to leave by saying, this isn't gonna last. You can't hide from us forever. This is only temporary. This Sub-Zero is looking at Liu because that's the last fight he had. Then he looks over to Cole. He say to him through his eyes, you're next, because he has a feeling on Cole. There's something about Cole that I think he already knows is a descendant of Scorpion. Here Kano talk about, you know, like the metaphor of life is like a box of chocolates. You don't know which ones you're gonna get, but at the same time he's actually referencing, well, what about with superpowers? Does that mean that I can like pull guns and knives out of my ass? Such a shithead. He's like, could be frisbee hat. Whereas Kung Lao gets a little pissed off and says, the name is Kung Lao. And then Liu steps up and says, your training has begun. And Liu says, you are with your dragon tattoo, and it is up to you to find out what your arcana will be into the training. To find and seek out the arcana that is within you, your inner power. Now Kung Lao and he had discovered theirs when they were in the fire pit, but he also says to them, you will discover yours. And then Kano obviously does wisecracks. What I get out of it, fireballs, guns, knives shooting out of my ass. And then Sonya, obviously she feels he's so rude. She's like, would you just shut up? Kung Lao stops Sonya and says, for the ones that don't have the marking cannot train. So she is to just she's welcome to watch. Cole speaks up and says, well, hey, wait a minute, she's with us. If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't be here. Liu clarifies that a fighter without a marking is a liability and they cannot achieve an arcana. Because if they don't have a marking, it's very important that they have that marking so that they can receive that arcana and be powerful enough to defend. Sonya decides to wait by Jax's side. Kung Lao says to Cole, test your might. And I know that's kind of a cheesy way to start off the training, like the game where they say, test your might. But this is supposedly encouragement for motivating Cole to help him find his arcana. So they begin sparring off and everything, and then Kano makes one of them, you know, cracks again, where he goes, maybe your arcana is getting your ass beat to wear a hat kicking your ass. And he laughs, you know, what a low-down scumbag. Liu Kang and Kano, they spar off. Liu keeps tripping him. He's like, try that again, Harry Potter. He just keeps flipping him, tripping him. Liu gives Kano the sweep over and over and over. And he's like, no Harry Potter stuff. And yet, you know, he's just really making a mock. And then he goes, yeah, go put a shirt on, Magic Mike. Because Liu is, he's cut. He's got abs and he's strong and he's chiseled. She's chiseled pretty good. It's like Bruce Lee was chiseled. We see Lou stitching up Cole, and Cole's asking Lou, how did you get your Arcana? How did you reach it? And then Lou begins telling the story how he was an orphan and was found. As soon as Lou took the dragon tattoo from the purveyor of orphans, his Arcana came forth. So Kung Lao and Cole, they spar between each other for a brief moment. You know, Sonya, she's with Jax, and he's practicing his punches. He's trying to build up his strength again. He's like, these don't seem to work, and then Sonya ends up giving him a speech, how I gave up on you, and you gave me a speech on how I shouldn't give up. And, you know, so basically Sonya's returning the favor back. She's letting him know that you should never give up. So the fighters are all sitting at the table, and they're about to train the next day. As usual, you know, Kano always usually likes to start shit. He just starts talking trash. He talks to Jax about his arms. Like, do they make those in men's sizes? Laughs, yeah, of course. And then he asks Kung Lao if he could pass him an egg roll. He asks Kung Pao, pass me an egg roll. Pao says he should lay off the egg rolls and instead help Kano train for the next 100 days, because it clearly doesn't have what it takes. Basically, he says to him, you have no skill, zero. That, you know, in combat takes intelligence. Kano asks if he has a death wish. So then maybe he should just take that sombrero of his and shove it right up his ass. And he would shove it up so far up his ass that he'd start speaking Spanish. The Kung replies, you can try. I just fucking might. And Lou steps in with like a Bruce Lee philosophy. Why would you jeopardize the only one that would even be able to help you? No, you misunderstand it. Lao is there to help him, but he's there to save him because he cannot save himself. Basically calls him out and says that he's like a soft little bunny, useless and yet can't do nothing. He should be on his knees to Kung Lao. And then we hear Kano speak up and say, I got a better idea. How about both of you guys get on your knees and both take turns sucking my sack? And then Lao says, he's a failure. He's not a force to be reckoned with, right? Lou says, you're angry. Good. And Kano says he's a wanted man in 35 countries. He's not someone to mess with. His blood boils and he says that I am Kano of the Black fucking Dragon. And who are you two? A caveman hippie with beads? Taking orders from a wushu wanker with a hubcap as a helmet? Now sit down and shut up and pass me my fucking egg roll. He gets mad and he's, Rrr! And then his laser beam comes right out of his eye, man. I mean, like, wow, you know? He finally found his Arcana. He finally reached it. And that was it. Y'all saw that. And he laughs, ha ha ha. Laser beam. Meanwhile, Lou is telling Cole, we're running out of time here. You gotta find your Arcanas. You cannot deny what inner truth is within you. Cole is sparring off with Kano and he's getting his ass kicked. And still nothing is happening to him. Sonya approaches Cole and asks, what are you looking at? He shows her a picture of his family, of his wife and his daughter. And Raiden comes in and he says, you have failed to reach your Arcana. This means you're a liability to the tournament. Cole asks, how did I get the dragon tattoo? If I wasn't supposed to be a part of this, then why did I get it? He's like, it's from your lineage, Cole, that you are this direct descendant of the most famous ninja assassin, Hanzo Asashi. He was the greatest ninja ever. So the marking comes from his lineage, ever since he was born. And Raiden, he had high expectations for him, but he explains that without it, you're a liability and you need to go and be with your family. The moment that Scorpion died, he was sent to the Netherrealm, where it's the farthest reaches of hell seeking revenge, but his bloodline lives through Cole. And Sonya says to him, don't give up, and Cole says, I'm sorry. He moves on and returns back home. Melina Cabal and Rico, along with Natara, are together on a mission. They gather themselves with Shang Tsung. He says, those champions that I have seen from Earthrealm are no match, so they need to end this as soon as possible. They're drawing near to the victory, right? And think it's taking Earthrealm's team forever. So they need to strike now. Paul speaks up and says that he thinks he can help, and asks if did he see a guy by the name of Kano, that he's a low-life piece of shit, a scumbag of the earth, that he's the reason why he lives in an iron lung. Then Goro comes through and Shang Tsung says, hi, we finally have a warrior to represent Shokan. With Shokan's blood on their side, there's no denying that they will win. in the end. Kano in the temple stands his ground around the lightning as he sees Kabal, right? Backstabbing, two-faced, ugly motherfucker. They obviously know each other. It's been a long time since they last spoke. Kano says that Kabal's eyes have gotten redder over time. And Kabal says, you know, you have a big mouth for someone standing on the wrong side of the fence. So he convinces Kano that he should come back over. And then that's when Kano says, what do I have to do? And Kabal says, I'm working with him, not for him. It has its perks. And Kabal says, you used to be feared, look at you. You were the Black Dragon clan, and you know, I wonder who you report to now. Is it the blonde? Of course, he's talking about Sonya. Kano, he says, I am the Black Dragon. It clarifies he takes orders from no one. Cole hears something outside, and then he goes to see what it is, and it turns out to be Goro. And then we see Kano where he's actually using his laser beam to destroy this dragon statue. Black Mask comes forth, and then we see Shang Tsung and others entering through to the temple once again. And this time, obviously, Kano has joined them. Shang says the undoing of the prophecy has begun. So Cole's ready to fight Goro, and he tells his family to get back inside. This is where all the battles are beginning, and Kabal faces off to Kung Lao. General Rico hits Liu with his hammer that sends him flying. And then Jax and Rico, they spar off. Then we see Kabal fighting Liu Kang. Liu shoots his flame-throwing hands, so Kabal zaps through Liu. Cole and Goro are still at it. Back and forth, Rico versus Jax, Cole versus Goro. So we see Sonya as she takes on Mileena and stabs her and tells her that she's basically, she's not worth anything. She doesn't even have a dragon tattoo on her shoulder. Then she looks her side and tells Sonya that her death is not worth anything. Then Kano returns to fight Sonya. Meanwhile, Liu is still fighting Kabal. Then Kung Lao throws his hat at Shang. As he turns his head ever so slightly to the left and misses him, Shang sends Natara over his head to get Kung Lao, and then Kung Lao takes he gets right behind her there and then like shoves her to the ground. As the hat is spinning on the ground, it slices her, splitting her into half. Then the hat is back on his head and he says, flawless victory. Goro raises Cole up from the ground, up in the air, about to rip him apart. His wife comes from behind and takes an axe to his back. Then she and her daughter go to the truck, and this is where we see Cole for the first time ever to unleash his arcana. His eyes start to glow with fire, and a golden armor shirt is exposed. Then he goes after Goro, seeing him rip off the door of his truck, and the motivation is to enhance his skills that he has developed weapons on his forearms coming through. He cuts off Goro's hand. Then he comes up and slices his chest with the other hand, the other arm. Then he runs his other weapon through Goro's eye. He falls down to the ground. Cole hugs his family. Jax, he picks up a boulder and his arms have been extended. And now he's finally to full capacity to where his arms are where they need to be. And he is able to save Sonya. Raiden and Shang, they meet again. And then Raiden sends out a portal for Cole to come back. And you know, Shang is surprised and Raiden thanks Cole for beating Goro. And now he knows that he needs to fight Bihan, Sub-Zero. Now Raiden immediately starts to send the fighters away. He gets Sonya and Jax out of the picture. He's about to send Cole along with Kung Lao. But Kung Lao gets out of Raiden's lightning to throw his hat at Sub-Zero. To save Cole, only to lose his soul to Shang Tsung. Just as Liu rushes over to help Kung Lao, it's too late. Then Cole grabs Liu into the lightning and takes him along with Kung Lao's hat. Raiden says they are in the void where they cannot follow. So Liu lays Kung's hat down and says if they were to die, it was supposed to be together in battle. Raiden replies, I am sorry, Liu Kang. And Liu says, without Lao, Earthrealm was lost. Why couldn't you have saved him, Lord Raiden? You know, Jax, Elder Gods are forbidden to interfere, so therefore he cannot save every soul. And Cole speaks up and says, it's not over, we still need to fight. Raiden tells Cole that the dagger, the blood on the dagger is from his bloodline, it was from Hanzo Hasashi. He's given him the dagger to, so that the spirit of Scorpion will be with him. And so Cole says we need to fight smarter. You know, they feel like they're more prepared and it says they're against the rules and they don't want a tournament, but we're going to give them one. And then he starts letting everybody have who they want. So Jack steps up and he says, I'll take Rico because me and him, we have unfinished business and I have a score to settle. And he says, Lou, you and I will take Melina and Cabal because I feel for you it is personal that you end that match between Cabal and yourself. And he goes on to say, Sonya, you're going to take Kano because I know that you need him. You need to get that dragon tattoo from him. Jax asked about Sub-Zero. I said, well, we'll all team up together and kick his ass. Melina charges at Cole and the special effects are awesome. Yeah, she disappears and all that. See Lou and Cabal and he's throwing flames at him. I mean, the choreography is really great. Jax and Rico are at it again, and this time make no mistake that Rico's going down. Jax keeps hitting him in the face, and then he finally smashes his head, followed by saying, yeah, these motherfuckers work. You know, Sonya and Kano, they're back at the headquarters, and he's shooting his laser beams all over the place. And then Sonya is on the ground, and then Kano's got her. He thinks he's got his arms all around her, and then she takes the gnome and shoves it right up his eyeball. Then, thus, the dragon tattoo that was on his neck was transferred on to Sonya. Cabal and Liu Kang are back, and Liu Kang does his little bicycle kick that immediately just sends him down to the quicksand, and then it's just really cool to see that Liu is actually able to summon that dragon and all the fieriness of it that it is, and comes up and down onto him and just eats him up. He goes fatality for Kung Lao. Cole's match his match is still going on with him and Melina, and then Sonya steps in, and then she has the purple laser rings that come out, and it goes right through her torso, right? And then you could see her spine. It is so cool. And Cole asks her, well, you got that, that was really cool. He says, yeah, this is a parting gift from Kano. So Sub-Zero steps into the house of Cole's wife and child, and then he goes and pays a visit to Cole and shows him the black and gold bracelet that his daughter had made for him, and he just crushes it right in front of him, and he goes after him and says, Emily! Time he arrives, they're already frozen, but he doesn't know if they're dead. Then, you know, Sub-Zero says the bloodline of Hanzo Hasashi will end here. So they get into the fights, and you know, they're back and forth, and Sub-Zero's freezing him and flipping over and kicking him, hitting him and all that. And then he ends up remembering that he's got that dagger, that spear of Hanzo, so he ends up using it, and then as soon as Sub-Zero sees that he goes, Hanzo Hasashi! He recognizes the spear, and then that's at that point where Scorpion's behind him and says, get over here. He goes, I have risen from hell, from the fires to kill you. I am Scorpion now. And he, you know, they're fighting and such, and he ends up taking off his mask and says, remember this face? And then he puts it back on, and they keep on fighting. You see Cole still beaten, trying to get his family. Then he decides to help Hanzo fight. So they square off with Sub-Zero. And then Scorpion says, for the Shirai Ryu clan. And then we see a scene where Sub-Zero ends up making a frozen shape of himself and gets out. And I thought it was really cool to see Scorpion in the midst of their fight as he twirls and spins into the shape that was made by Sub-Zero. And it was really neat to see this, just like the video game. Hanzo, he recalls when his family was frozen, when he saw Cole's daughter and wife, and he had hoped that they were still alive. He just hopes that Cole's bloodline isn't dead yet. So they team up to fight Sub-Zero, and they kick his ass. You know, Sub-Zero, he still has a little bit of some fight in him, but he still says out loud, for the Lin Kuei. Then Scorpion tells Cole to leave him to me. We see that Cole's family is still luckily alive. What a blessing, right? Scorpion, he turns to Sub-Zero and says, you have hoped that I had burned in flames from hell, but the truth of the matter is that I've come back to learn how to control the fires. And so he opens up his mouth, and then flame on just goes right on him, through him, and he takes it, with fire coming out of his mouth, just bursting into flames, you know? It's like, you know, vengeance and justice is served all in one. I mean, how glorious that was. Then Scorpion turns to Cole and says, you have freed me, so therefore please take care of your family and my bloodline. He puts his face mask back on and then turns around, and then flames are all, you know, just surrounding him, and then he goes back to the Netherrealm. Cole hugs his family. Then Raiden, Liu Kang, Jax, and Sonya Blade, they all show up. Raiden says, I am impressed. And Cole goes on to say, I thought Elder Gods were not to be involved in anything. And he said, well, in this case, he'd make an exception because I think it was personal all too well for Raiden, because after all, he did save the baby to continue the legacy. So he decided that he knew that it was in Cole's best interest that he would need a little bit of help in this journey to get through this battle. But Raiden wanted to ensure that he would make it possible that Hanzo's legacy would continue. Then Shang Tsung comes back to collect his warriors, and he says, death is only a portal and I'll be back to bring more armies. And then, you know, Raiden says, he speaks up and he says to Shang Tsung, you will return to Outworld at once. And then he zaps him with lightning, and then he turns around and then just says he talks too much. Everybody gathers around him and wants to know what's going to happen next. And Raiden ends up saying, we will need to enlist a whole new group of fighters and warriors and champions to fight into Mortal Kombat, just because this is not going to be over, and we're on a mission for new recruits. So then we see Cole back at the locker room, and his manager comes up to him. He walks up to him and says, I'm going to need you tonight to fight, Cole. And Cole refuses because he said he's done, he's through, he's not going to collect $200 anymore, because the point of the matter is he's got something more real to live for, and he is on a mission to go to California, to Hollywood. And the manager goes, what's in Hollywood? He goes on to say, it's not what, it's who. And he walks on by, and then he sees Johnny Cage, as it says on the poster, Citizen Cage, fight for your rights. And it's a movie, you know, because Johnny Cage is obviously a popular guy in the actors world of making all these martial arts films, but we'll discover him. And so that just brings us to a close that we will already know by seeing this poster that there will be a sequel to Mortal Kombat.